다 그외 최주디 나로리아 니버디 대바도 존주기 라마탄베가 가시 주고 가시 주버시 그체 안디 주제 수바디 카사게 균셰베 라메 당과마 노시크스 제상 다디지 다다나 신지 15시로도 대반nen데 라메 투공로 버시 라마탄베 투공로 버시 그래서 다 디게디 상으로지 라마도 저여야 돼 봐. 다 인두산에 다 디게들이야 제체 에야지 스카시지 셰하면 좋은 정도.
So among the 10 necessary things, we have gone over the second one. It is necessary to practice with faith and diligence in accordance with the instruction of the Holy Gurus. And the third, it is necessary to select instructions of one's Guru unmistakably through understanding the difference between instructions that are appropriate and inappropriate. And so it seems like the following line also, it is necessary to enact the intentions of the Holy Guru with knowledge, faith, and diligence. So since all of these seem to be in relationship or in one's relationship to the teacher, so maybe along this line, some words can be shared with you.
단 니네 장조 진행기 다 지숑기 잠정 미저와다 안 쿠유 미저에 나로리아 차론 중대베 아주지 나주냠레 챙게 디들이야 양지 라마 최아다 라마 대야 고리야 양 참선지 미세 강에 된대 요아소 된대 미세 강에 태 안 다나 신지 태양 라메지 최딘주라야 양고 가서에 랑소수기 안 캄메바 안 다나 신지 쿠요다 감정 민자여베 인상 디들이야 양지 소수기 아니 몇바다 팀베 토네 아니지 최나 디디 최마 수야 토리 미네 안 데라데 신지 가서에다 넘버 나서르지 공개 수시다 내림 차디야래 제자 배차샤위미나 녜도 윤지 최를 시아지 두산 가제도 도르지 에너지 지중이 감정 민저베 에네 최냠레 생에 소리야 관주지 강원도 팀베토네 에네 가제도 도르지 마지 뒤에 최시아로지 배수 체리아 처래 얘네 삼성 가버지도 가랬잖아 소수 지숑기 다 구즈지 지숑 감정 되들이야 당연히 대바셔샤 야다 양을 망보자 대수는 항상 니셔르스다 좀다
So as a teacher in giving or transmitting the teachings, given that in a number of cases there are very differing social and cultural as well as environmental background, that is the environment within which one is raised. So obviously there are very specific or particular difficulties related to that, which is to say that the cultural and social and environment can present as an obstacle in being able to understand the teachings. Then of course there are also a number of other backgrounds beside that in terms of the habitual. So even when a teacher is giving teachings also, one needs to consider the different propensity, the different mode of the mind of individuals, and again, as well as the cultural, social, and so forth background. So, when I present teachings, I try to bear that in mind, and to the best of my ability to take that into account and see how the teachings can be presented in accordance with the differing cultural, social, and so on background. But obviously, it is a difficult task.
잠잠지 배바시아디 지게는 나와 시장 주의즈마디 그도르 집에 네 까단데니에 수 지금 잠잠지 까단데니에 소면로 저 배배 나노래 지 제어를 니 제어를 지 가서다 이체 유에 시자 전에 지 시윤주산에 안 고조지 시주산데 렘버리지스만 잠잠지 지게래야 시합데 배바시아 윤주산에 아니 수부러지 시라 용유스만 다지 바지 랍랍 단데면서 근데 제가 컨텐도 저랑 삼나 컨텐도 생각했지 다 가서 지마 람드응기 깔로 소지 미미체 삼자시에 니스지 근데 좋은데 제가 삼성 딱 지지리 지리 메두스네 심리야 아니 두버균리가 지지 제용도 두버균리 디나 가르쳐 알았잖아 장부시에나 농라포 덴바시에나 와서쇼 안 가자 아니 사무시에나 마고세 아니 가자네 숨바디 숨바디 정도다 사무시에나 마고세체 아니 숨바디 카로데나 쿠버 통세 지어르데 제가 계속은 데마데냐 가서에다 뭐니 주디 버리보디 호라 지 가시 나게 좀 니주 잡는 방법이 물어봐 제가다 교랑 디비 니주디 교랑기 교랑가 교래도다 디 교랑 나게 찾아봐 인자 근데 교랑기 교래 하스 아니 교랑 삼지 미지 지게도 삼다 아도 전화도 교랑 교래도 교랑 나게 찾아자 제샤 수슬라비나니 에 바저데 노라 퍼지고 호르사르도와 아드레 마르데 교랑에 줘요 마다디지 가르소지 고라르지 겹제 다디 람산지 가소에 다 남긴 좀 되셔러버데 어다 데지 가소에 they are different circumstance 아저다 다데 균 규게 마무스타요 아레스 and they do san 다디 교랑도 거스베 동해져 말은 동도르지 가소에 바지 제부터다 동도디 바 통연주다 고랑베 나게 찾아와면나 고랑 시스템 그 남도 교회에서도 다얀티베 그도 시야잖아 안 보도록 봐. 안 보도는 라마디 셈마가 차라. 안 덴바시에나. 그래서 덴바서 말다 두경 아주 양 베베게 시단지 킹경 제하를 줘러 봐. 베네 최시도 산 킹경 제하를. 땅에 개 신기메 게 구메 알아 냠레메 딱 강가메 아니 다 삼성 준주 자세시와래다 베 현대 상바야 메스다 지르스나 다 봐줘디 지게 고조 고알베 커도 고알렌지 고 현대 상바 유사 말이 콜 고아 유사 말 냠내 유사 말 강가 유사 말이 니 자는 좀인도 가면도 삼 근데 고알렌도 와 아니 마시네야 삼성야 소수께서 내마시나야 저 소수 소수에 뭐 사고 애들이 막 모여러 봐. 다 대시에 문유지. 그래서 내보고 시에 문유지. 다 사부시 배 퇴고와 사부를 시제. 배지 가서에 사부를 방고 단지 엔베 제법 먹고 제지 즉 사부를 단지 가로지 고와 사부를 진예지. 어다디 이제 제자 안다디 대 셰르셰니마 가수 쿠란 소리마 고아 수수 강 고아 련데버디 좀 마셰 뉴스 어다디스 가르세 땅 오이네 진짜 아주 산다 사모르스 그러봐 고주 다디 고민도 스타한테 고juk 해민도 스타 사드네 용도 봐 아니 가로데는 저거 말하다 고버이나다 지금 야면 대 게임 먹을 대비해 소셔 봐 네 삼사지 가버리지도 돼 에네 안다 안에 집에는 드린더지 내려지 나가서 치기에 같이체 아니 배박 같이 예비 인도산에 남중 안에 시에다 치기에 시에다 배박 시에다 내에서 말아 지시가지 저다 드리베 배박의 지게니가 여자 지게를 시야를 시하고 있는데 배박을 시야를 시하고 있는 하마고 되지 내주지 차선스럽지 아니 스템플을 보면 있어도 안다 안에시 양만 자는 양 기주기야 아 미치 못 더도 계속만 자는 다들 내 뉴스안에 다 가버리죠 안 남시디에 차지 난 우리나라에 망하지 가버도다 자자 루버군이 지대 주나나 가서 당연히 시주와 디감 되바잖아 가서 가로데나 구버도 망보시에나 아니 기주를 쓰버사
So along this line, actually giving teaching is somewhat challenging because depending on this cultural and social background and upbringing and so forth, different ways of teaching seems to be necessary. So when teachings are provided or given to Tibetans alone, and I think it comes across more like commands, and this is what you should do, and this is not what you shouldn't do, and so forth. It comes more in the form of command or order, and with the sense that there is a basic confidence, a basic foundation or background of confidence is there, and so it can be sort of presented in that way. And that seems to work well for Tibetans. But maybe those outside of the Tibetan sort of the cultural upbringing and needs to be taught differently. And then probably when taught differently, when Tibetans are listening, it doesn't sound much like a formal teaching. It sounds like a general discussion taking place and more sharing of opinions or some kind of dialogue. It doesn't sort of come through as formal advice, guidance that are providing. And so what do you think about this? Don't you see it this way, and so forth? It comes across like we have a discussion going on, and then maybe for the Tibetan framework of mind, it doesn't come across as teaching. And caught between, it's not easy. And so, caught between, when you try to churn up something, not much else comes up. So, other than thinking of some words that the great master Dukpa Kunle had spoken. And so anyway, I just thought of some words to pass it on you. And so he had said that if one says something, tells something honestly, and then it's that some people, it sort of hits their ego. And then if the truth is told, and then sometimes it causes embarrassment. And then if you speak something profound, it's not understood. Say something profound, and if you say nothing, then you seem like quite dumb person. And so, caught between these, it's like that. So what Rupa Gulin seems to saying that, for instance, if somebody tells you and something quite honestly, and one experiences vulnerability from the point of one's pride. One's pride can't handle, even though it's a fact, it's a truth, and the way the truth is told directly, one's pride just can't handle, so it creates bad feelings, and then in the name of skillful, we kind of have to tell it indirectly, or sometimes even say, oh, the person doesn't really mean that, in the circumstances and so forth, and different cause and conditions and so on and so forth. So kind of just to make it more, let's say, cushion it with different ways, and to try to avoid the bare truth. So, and then when something is said honestly, sometimes it gets misunderstood, because in the tradition of the Dharma teaching, many teachers known to express their humility, and sort of like a traditional thing also to express humility in terms of that I do not know much or do not know anything, I have no experience, and then that Shantideva in the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life even goes as far as saying it's not for the purpose of benefiting others that I have composed this. And so that much humility is expressed. But in a different cultural context, like for instance, to the extent I understand it, in the Western cultural context, then it is taken on the face level. So what's the use of going to this teacher who doesn't know, who has no experience, who have no interest in benefiting others? Might as well as go to somebody else who would be much more equipped, with other credentials and all the other whatever long list of credentials. So sometimes when you tell the truth, it's misunderstood. And then of course, some truth, if you have to admit, it is embarrassing for one, that the mistakes that one have made or whatever, that unwise things that one might have done. So it brings embarrassment, and then best not to say those things that embarrasses others. And now, sometimes when concentrating on substantial matters and the core, the truth that benefits others, sort of like essential truth presented, it happens to be very profound for the listener and doesn't comprehend, doesn't appreciate. There's no sort of common understanding taking place, and so again, it doesn't serve the purpose. And so it seems best that you just keep quiet, keep to yourself. But then, well, you sound pretty dumb, can't even say anything else. And so, in this way, that presenting the teachings is quite a challenge. Now, on top of this four things that Rupa Kunle had said, then I might add that if I say quite a lot, then the translators look up at me with big eyes and show their disinterest or whatever, and
angry face.
Angry faces.
다 가사가 교연시에 라마 탐베 라면 당과만 오고 사데 다 가사가 교연시에 사데 가보시라도 와데 애는 아주 뱅글 파벌 루기 시딩 나로리아 에너지 암나 벨샤는 숨분시 아 신도 암나 암나서와 신도 암나 다 암이 인지로가 돼 암나 다 신도 암나 벨샤 다 간다 배 치미라 나마미바 나미는 치미미바 이거 민베서들 영어 미로 대주산에 참참 좀미 교연진이네 그 남주 역시 대신도 그 남주의 바지지 미 교연의 지레베 남그 가수에다 배지 마지 술주에다 배 수여로 상부 수여로 자디 요수 자디 국회요 세상 그 요수 제바디 딜리아 대점 치 넘주를 잡냐 하는 거 그렇지 그래서 난기 다 디니 마통스네라도 난기 전시 마통 디용도 와 양 가세 요 가세 난정 차나 상부 이베체 이내 그 넘주당 안다나지 시거래 가지 토나야 지 디뷰 지 가서 헙디 대비미나 지 나와 마줘야 되다 로를 먹어도 망보용이 또 배차서비나 안 마르버 샤바나 지주 마르바 로자 마베 어디데 로자 마베 시거도 계속서 시거도 92시르디 아니 지 과대 라서 헙디 대비는 지 고란리아 로데 죄된게 로마 자슈 밀레레베레 대파 가르수에다 델레야베 지도 건도를 제제 아니 지 가수에 나주에 단대는 소식 통도와 뭐 어디 대비나 제가 디소를 전에 다 가사가 교사디 아주지 헙디 대비지 가수에 베베 그주나 야나 헙디 대비지 야나 상숨시비 시에나 지사 줘봐 야나 헙디 대나 싱그레스 다야나 쇼숨시베 시에서 기시베는 시 딱한다 지 가사가 교사디 춘지자 오늘 전에 지 띵페로지다 nenden지기 권에 제거하래도 마도 디디 가스 가르지 가수에다 치기 넘버 점다 야나지 년자 점다 다 야나지 가수에 소수 가신 점공안도 심이나 바지엔 제가 매매 수시자 미실 마야고서 무슨 다 막한 말로 전주로데
So explanation on this point, it is necessary to select instruction of one's guru and mistakenly to understand the difference between instructions that are appropriate and inappropriate. Actually in the Tibetan it comes across that one needs to examine the individual as well as the instructions. So here in connection with the individuals, in terms of the individual's shortcomings and the good qualities, it would be very difficult to say on face level. And as Nagarjuna had also pointed out, that it would be like in a way, looking at a mango fruit, and that if it seems ripe from outside, there is no definite indication that it is ripe inside too. And so it's inside, if it's ripe, then not necessarily it also shows quite clearly outside. So along the same line of example, it is a very difficult actually thing to figure out or discern as to whether somebody is that with all kinds of flaws or qualities of goodness and perfection. As we know in the world that certain individuals may be having lots of faults, but can act in such a way in context of society that is able to come out with the right kind of the flair, external flair in terms of the mannerisms, like as if, you know, the person is the best one and noble one and so forth. So one has you know, become a professional in being able to present oneself in the most civilized way, while that is not so as far as one's actual character is concerned. Then on the other hand, there are certain individuals that who had incredible inner qualities of goodness and noble qualities, but do not necessarily become apparent externally. And there are many such people, and for instance, even in the case of great prominent masters like Marpa, and so the Marpa, his external character, the way he comes out, probably sort of in a way looks very strange to other people because he had a very uncompromising personality, and that he comes across even to the extent that his most trusted, to his most trusted disciple, the one who really he could count on, Milarepa, and he, you know, put him through all the hardship. It's like, looks like even the one who he could trust and count on, he appeared like he bullied him the most. So in that way, it is very difficult to say just from the appearance, you know, and to be able to make it definite as to what a person is like. And there is a Tibetan saying towards this, intended to sort of help in that either you understand somebody instantly, like the instinct point of view, or that it could take you 3 days to get a sense of somebody. But basic point is, unless one has gone through pretty careful observation and sort of go deeper into knowing somebody, then it would be very difficult to actually that you are correct. It would be difficult that you have made the correct sort of assessment. For instance, if one goes by external appearances, and if one goes by fame, and if one goes by personal preferences, if those are the sort of criteria that one would use to determine how good somebody is, then obviously it would become very questionable.
lama tse uye, lama deng uye, lama nge tsawe lama kwaya res. Nzugu tsu sho, ngochu ji shu. Shala yore, nuru yore, chana yore, kwaya res. Ta baji, lam san chi nzugu tsu je be di jik ti yung kwa na ru jik sha di. Ta di zu khan shen di jik lamye kwa le, chiba mang ta ru chue je, ta tashu ru jik samlo tangju sa, ta tunda dodor de nga na jik ko, karsu jik samlo na ru jik kwa chu. 지당 라메 친이데 가수에 맞다 도당아 안 된주 강게로나는 지 라메 친이 왜 가수에다 간다 개발라 개리카나 개반 딩볼라 가나 딩보 뒤발 가나 뒤베사나시 다 간다 라메 친이리 베 가수에 참상야 베지 라마 친이 약수 중은 데제 거래 대대로 뭐주나 배 가르쳐다 진이 시자 상황 계좌 상황 사들이 좀 먹고 왔다 답에 알아주면서는 배 자지 야타 봐 대마존에 자정 없이 담아 대마존에 자정이 주다 무슨 소리 다데 다에 먹고 와래다 진이 거는 계시자고 왔으면도 대 이비네야 진이디 창마상怎么样吧 진이 진짜시 창외 라마디 랑게 때에 버지다 오늘 지내지 랑게 지 랑려야 오늘 아쉬워 다 친이 된다 상 남한테 수수 된 거래 지당고 친이지 창도 민동 아주 콜 님십지 되요 말해 다 친이 된다 상 남한테 수수 된 거에 인도사 수수 된 대로 와지래도 다디 삼을 야고스당 다 대야 통마르디 데려야 된세 숨르지 말아서 당보디 다 간다 템퍼처 칸사 라마이나디 랑도베 디베 코랑 랑도 소마르 다 간다 코랑 응원에 지내게 더 정신 선한다 랑도 선한다 대웅의 숨도 지 통투 거야지 그래서 계속 면로서 랑도 야고치 통과 베랑 다대야 삼성 가르사나 베네 라겐다 셀라 노도 유사 시도와 라겐사데 고 material ko yore te ko pha thar budde bi ne sen da yore sida ragen da sel no do yeso na shi samsa khorang ge rang do ngene de ren xing ngene de ma thong chen ko ran xi zuma ti tong yin bena da lama tsini da me den be shi ge tsini de den be so da den xing ge 야 라마 친이라 뎀베야 라마다 친이 미뎀베 sobdae ba de se ber de wa bere jing ge chubdo khashe ne be nyaba da xianba da je ge be sobdar de che ene be ba je one kwang ge la me jin xin wen ne de ka ri me de lama de bo me zhe ge jin da o xianba yin da lama yin da ene be ka shui da nyaba yin de su yin ha gu什么吧这样拉面的让多少人当都是新闻的通过积起你不的他拉嘛是就是让来云的空门去的吧让给呀可说可不切啥安这老点说啥人说说马些不的安得了跟着学呢安公给这可说没些不的些不经验但你这拉么些不经验마세와 세버지 근데 라마지 고가 봐. 대구도사 소소 류가 이 송고 돈에 엔텔레 앞에 가르쳐주지. 그밖에 아요 된 거지. 대리지 고가 봐. 그랑 아주 드니지 사요 봐. 얘네야 오늘지 다들 배드 가르쳐 주세요. 배드 엄마 별이야. dobdo요. dobdo 야 도도들아 지 도도도 저거 디디스네 네 저거 뭐지 거냐 야 다좀 증거를 네 얘들이 거냐 dobdobdizu pezu chobo didu ani be ya ta jun zingo res ben zingni be ya ta jun zingni de be daba king sona de chobo digres da na si ta nge lama de ta ju ya ta ju chene be ju lunga yi sun daba king bar ju na shine ta gyesu chewo la ba re do ma to 강 가르쳐 지 텔레야 be 가르쳐 지 토투스 지 마땅한 전에 겹수치 랍데는 또 버진 지가래입니다. 얘는 연락만 배 지금 알아주베 가르사 따상에 카보주베 시에서 지기 시야 여러분다. 다들이랑 시에서만 인지나 시험하다. 간다 공연에 연락만 상에 컨디지래도 배 알아주가 알아주 데스베 니고고 있었다. 니고 에너지 가르쳐다 주 딱제로 제제. 다 간다 다 룽아 이송 통하네 에베 매바게야지가 규바게야지 충분히는 신의 접수체에서 라고도 만다 안지 판도나 상보도 삼사로지 아드가 저기 봐 샤제 에는 거 당시에 개 만당체 엔델레야베 가르쳐에 어토르 개 만당체 샤샤나 디바진 지가래입니다 안들이 인주산에 아주 당제 당고래서 김센디 엔다 디니질 토디야 그래 인도산다 룽아 이송의 관에 지 오늘은 그거 수사지다 소수기 쭉게 노블에 된 초야지 랜덤이 동행지 소수지 가수에 다제리고 당과의 계심이 있어 다 타마디 계시 슈티 만다서 다리랑 미디 양지 경사를 됐어 랑 미디 양 som단 점을 망보대야 유자 삼자의 콘트사디나 가르치디 하고 온다. 제자다 숨버디. 오늘은 소수 이체 령게 제초하자 랜덤이도. 다 되게 아주 지스르잖아요. 와다 권니지 첨부래就是랍디아디 삼자들 지금이도 성. 니지 첨부 인교수 채워서 교랑들을 전되게 왜나 변하지 교랑이 변하지 다 변하 상와르지 교랑기베 수지를 시에 마베베 상와 수지길리아베 저 가르에 시에 마베베 상와더지 라마들 휴지라비나 그 슈아요 라말라 오늘은 라마스도 산다베 그냥 알아줘 베는지 초보 약수에서나 루투브 초보세나다 초보 약수 초보에 나는 이제 루투브 다 빼매지 다 초보스들 라마스도 초보 약수에 된 있어고로 다들이 소소지 상와치슈의 저지 텔레 셰 좋아지다 로투버르지다 이제 로데 페와지 되지 뭐로다 다 이내 칸에지 교수 저 남한테 니지 정보를 실업 정보를 칸에지 라마도 오늘 전에지 마야 돌아 투디 라마데 오 라마데 티게지 디시나 라메야 디 가르세 고고다용 소소로지 하나지 미신다를 시행中 소소로 지다 근데 지금 망부 차용 도다 다 간다 지금 로테 마게 되베 소시 다 로테 가서데 로테 페르마베텔이야 토디게 요소래 로테 마페나 다 니지 셴보레 시럽 셴보레 냠내 슈주 알아 접수 접수야 되디 바지 배양요소 가르사 라메 천디지게 남된 거 알아 천디지게 남디 람데지 람만으로 와지 때야겠다 이세 띵니 개와지 매비나 어허 다디 천디지기베 가르소에다 dü남 다 가르소에다 꾸디 생게다 라말이야베 가르소에 교랑의 지스제 랍수야 돼 깔라 가면도 디세이야 돼 깔라 가면도 인게지 우리도 와 드레이드산 디균선 때네 너나지 이세 로데리 배워 다나지 이제 룽아 이송권에 그바 처리인 초바 대 다나시 소 라마디 가사디 란동은에 지 통바샤 디 숨디 다 계속 메로서 근데 매매 지나 다데 다도 망다를 주면서 도도 인지게라 간들라 버티 공부망 다다들란 공부 팬들 나지고 티베트는 공부망
So this is something I've been thinking over the past few years. Actually, I've put a lot of thoughts into it, in that a number of people come to me and say, can you tell me who is my Lama, or who should I go to as my Lama, and who is my root Lama, and so forth, and is the Lama, you know, on the east, in the east or west, south and north, and so forth, in which direction, you know, my Lama is sort of, you know, waiting for me, and so as if it's something that, you know, in somebody's hand, and can just point you to that direction and that person. And so that's not being so. Anyway, I have nevertheless put certain amount of thoughts into this. So traditionally, in the teachings, because of the importance of an authentic spiritual master, a lot of information is provided, both in the sutras and tantras, as well as in the various different treatises or sastras written by great scholars, and as to what constitute the authentic qualities and characteristics of an authentic spiritual master. And that also, because of its significance and importance, they're given in different forms, and in accordance with sort of one's aptitude or propensity, shorter version and sort of mediocre version and more elaborate version, as to as much as one can learn about what constitute the authentic, the characteristic of authentic spiritual master. And the best spiritual master should have these and such number of qualities, and should be characterized by such qualities. And at least that a spiritual master should have this much qualification or qualities to be taken up as a spiritual master. So maybe approaching it from our common point of view, so as you know, this much is 100%, and this much is 50%, and this much would constitute 20%. So in this way, that you need to look at the characteristics and qualities, and so what makes someone an appropriate or authentic spiritual friend. While these are important and there needs to be taken into account, yet considering from another point of view that the knowledge of all of these qualities and characteristics is probably almost irrelevant, that if on the ground reality one is not able to make the connection with the authentic spiritual friend, and all of these information serves only for theoretical purposes. So there are 3 points or 3 things that are seemingly very important, and one is the first one is the spiritual friend, sort of the object of one's focus, and one should be able to see or understand the spiritual master for, you know, who he or she is, and sort of being able to get a sense of, as we say, the true colors, the true picture of who one is faced with, sort of the true face, if you would. And that is to say that one has seen for what it is, because there is all the possibility that one fails to see what it is, and looking from a looking from distance, even poor brass looks like gold, looking from a distance, and so, but coming closer at it, one may realize that that is not the true color of gold. So in this way, that because is the appearance what the reality is? Or is the reality what the appearance is? For instance, some in the appearance appear very well mannered and everything sort of in the right place, but not necessarily has the quality of an authentic spiritual friend. And on the other, their behavior, their outer experience doesn't seem to have anything to do with what's being said about what should be constitute the qualities or the characteristic of spiritual friend. Because in the past, the great Siddha masters, some of them live like ordinary householders, and even more than that, hunters and fishermen, and then a hunter, a fisherman for an authentic spiritual friend. So if it's in the appearance, so obviously a hunter and a fisherman wouldn't make the true spiritual friend. So in this way, what is the true spiritual friend? Is one sort of, has one encountered the true face, the unmistaken, sort of the true color of a spiritual friend? So then the second is a spiritual friend is someone who has qualities that one would like to benefit from, and who is object of respect, and whose guidance, whose direction one wants to seek, and what one doesn't understand or what is not clear to one, to help become clearer. And so so in this way, that understanding the qualities of the spiritual friend, and so it is very important that one, in a way, that one needs to initially, in order to make sure that some individual is worthy of one's respect, and one should take a sort of closer look, and in some sense that put through, shall we say, the test, and just simply one sort of casually accepting that someone is good is not enough. It's like one has one sort of tested in that, because here is someone to whom one is going to offer the respect of one's body, speech, and mind, and one is going to take this individual as one's crown jewel. And so in this way, that whether is up to that sort of standard or not. And so in this way, then the third is that one, and most important, is the spiritual friend completely trustworthy, and can one completely, has one the can one give complete trust in the spiritual friend? Because that is actually the most important, sort of the deciding factor. So in this way, that it is not just enough to say, or it appears like very compassionate, and so therefore, since he, the so-called spiritual teacher, appears very compassionate, so therefore I go for refuge. And even in our worldly terms, what takes to have somebody become one's best friend. And here, when we're talking about a spiritual friend, it's like the sort of the best of the best friend. And so therefore, in this way, that one needs to recognize that the grounds for complete trustworthy, and is one going to put can one put all one's trust? Is one going to put all one's trust into that? And so that way, because sometimes we may say, oh, it's such a worthy being and so full of compassion and so full of wisdom and realization and so forth. But when it comes to the ground reality, that actually one is not able to trust with the most sort of inner, the secrets of most intimate secrets of one's being, because while one on one hand says wise one and compassionate one and knowledgeable one, but when it comes to trusting, one say, well, if I tell this very secret to this teacher, then maybe it'll fall back on me and it'll be used to sort of take advantage of me, and then would be told to others. Therefore, I don't know whether I want to go as far as trusting. And while that is the main sort of point, and so the spiritual teacher, if one views it from the point of view of is not only the true object of refuge, protector within this lifetime and for all future lifetimes to come, and the sole guide and deserving of one's true devotion or reverence, then the basis for that should be complete trust. And so in this way, that actually a trust in the sense, as we would say, a trust that we have no qualms about sort of signing our life, so to speak, and that kind of trust is needed.
단도나 라마 최세아디 타마부시 두산베 라마 고들 베베 나노지 지다 라마사도 구루사도디 엄마는 베베게 진짜 말다디 뭐라지 야가기 안다간다지 가데는 유디디즈나 예데베게 싫어봐 다 이미네 다 별이야 라마사데 베게 유디 라마르차 안 라마사지 싫다 마시 셰두산에 안 베베게 비규 남바상게 발레야 라메짐사지 싫도 라메줄루스 아는 권에베 라마지 굽네 라마지에베 강가로베 라마게게 셰두산 다디 가셰지 고추고 고몽고 애들이 저기 있어 라바도 라마 된다 지디스두산 고몽고 저도 다 된다도 더럽더니 라마 최스두산 미상부지 최쇼 파질러기 얘기 말이다 미상부지 최쇼사와 좀 인기 말해서 다디 초부 상부지 랑기 뢰트의 초부 상부지 최쇼스 미상부지도 어디 대바바질이야 삼바 상부 인지에 된게 셰럽이에 된게 진짜 도스 미 최쇼스가 다 조디 소수 이제 련게 제쇼사 근데 저기 초부 상부지 지금 최쇼스라고 하래 근데 인도산에 또 되버지 셰비나 소수직 최냠린 제배 가수에 지금 최냠린 spiritual part som말 최냠린 자기의 최적이 랑과디가는 주두산에 에네딜리아베지 마노르베 람드에 칭게당 로 칭게기 초보 상부 초보 류도지 다 드네지 제고도 섬서 드네지기 초보 상부지 제가 드네지 상로스 다지고 상로 가수에 다 초보 제스도 산 더버지 딜리지 시라 시비시비지다 고몽과스 개미도 왔다 소수기 다 대양 저 소수의 정보 상부지 가셔야지 인투의 정보 상부지 세도야 근데 지금 상으로 take it easy somewhere 다 take it easy that's 세마다 천천히 고마를 고를 수 뭐지 근데 지금 배제 라마 쳐서도 산지 앞서지 남로 불통계 사는 주통계는 지지 배매지 최고도 소자르지 안 간sam수도 상고를 배용도 아 이제 매미지 다 간다 도도디 다 개외 신년 스도자 신년 사데 초보함 야나데 삼삼비 냠 초보를 그거로 봐 소수기 빈장 아니 초보 근데 대한다 디가 넘베스 가르쳐 버렸잖아 개외 신이 개외 초보함 개외 녀스 아주 진직된 게 아니 지시루인데 배빈제다 개만해 진직된 게 토하는 아주지 초보지대한테 말하디 이내 최소 최기람리아 쇼베걸이야 한 아주지 가르쳐 이된 페르토베 아니 초보상보지 제거하는 이제 초보상보지 노민도 따야지 답 대버지 시에는 이제 좀 시에도 와 다 데려야 지금 네베르 아니 더 가자서 주소 삼 제 가르쳐 미팅 그룹 체인에서 가자 가자 손두산에 제 투어만 연행해 question mark 시부지 내셔야 된다 들려야 렌자만 오면서 린니 좀 연도 와 드린 도도 어디 결혼 그 뒤에 초보 삼부 잡이나 가르쳐 제기 봐 근데 가지 미지 랑갈 투 야도 가버 또 어디 결혼 아예 초보 인스 엔들레베 초보 단계한 치기인다 야는 얘네야지 초보 지자 친구는 꼴이야고 지지 얘네야 뒤주디 쉽체 그 유를 갈아간 사람을 소나 근데 신의 관리지 초보를 써야지 처로 봐 나들이 주산테는 진짜 거다 빠지 거야 인스래 다다게 도도들랑 시험하수다 도도스 말은 Tibetan
So just the three essential points in the second one. Sorry, I had left out one part, probably many others, but this one, obvious one, and that is, His Holiness was saying that in the past, in the big Tibetan monastic institute, there were monk security personnel or disciplinarians known as Dobdob. They are dressed and in a special way, very tough-looking ones, and so that and then that sort of between themselves they have sort of shoulder-to-shoulder sense of pride, and prior to any two Dobdobs becoming close friends, sort of heart-to-heart friends, first they have big fights, and so after having gone through enough fights, and then they come at the end, they become the closest of friends. And so, which is another way of saying, so when you spiritual friend, if you want to have somebody as a true spiritual friend that and object of respect, it wouldn't be practical to just sort of shelve it up as an object of reverence, and one needs to have certain definite interactions, and in the way of analyzing, sort of putting through test, so to speak, and then that finding out for through practical experiences that one is a great and noble being worthy of objects of refuge, finally come to that conclusion, not just initially jumping into some conclusion. So in this way to approach. Now, when we're talking about spiritual friend, guru or lama, and very frequently, the word lama is used, And actually it is not something just Tibetan or not something new. And when, you know, Buddhism came from India to Tibet, and then the translation of the Guru, the meaning of which being Lama, and then what is Guru, what is Lama is obviously spelled out clearly in many of the teachings and treatises. But since while it's an important issue, and yet when the word goes around, Lama and this and Lama that and everything, in whatever context, and then of course sometimes it gets taken out of context, instead of becoming a source of clarification, it seems that it's also become source of confusion, and say, oh, like certain the individuals outside of the Buddhist environment saying, oh, it's so we're talking about Lamaism, you know, the Lamas, you know, the religion sort of thing, and so everywhere is Lama, and but it's nothing to do with Tibetan. It's the translation of the word Guru, and then so one needs to find an authentic Lama or teacher. And so to put it in a more sort of simple and clear term is that it's not talking about finding a good person, that you should be looking for any good person. And somebody who is, who appears or who is very thoughtful, very intelligent, and seems to have the right manner. We are talking about finding a good friend. And so it needs to be understood in that light. And a friend who can help one guide on the path of the Dharma. And a friend who can be completely trusted. And so that more than ordinary friend, and that is a spiritual context. And so it's important that it's not that one is looking for just any good person, and so, you know, and it's what is a Lama and should be the qualities and everything, you know, making it more source of confusion. One is to say that one needs to find sort of, it's a personal relationship in the context of spirituality. So simply put it to finding a good friend who can guide one spiritually. And so if you look at that way, things become a little bit easier, and so that one can just begin to sort of take it easy. Otherwise, if one has all these out of one's confusion and all kinds of thoughts, then one has all this glamorous notion of the Lama. Maybe one should be looking for someone who is flying through the space, or who just simply in an instant disappear into the depth of the earth, and so forth. And so this could become very misleading. And so one needs to find a friend who one can trust, not an ordinary worldly friend, but in Tibetan Geweshenya or Kalyana Mitra, a friend who can give one, the friend plus who has the spiritual, who can guide one spiritually, and who one can trust complete. So simply the focusing on that would be more realistic. Otherwise, then if one thinks of all these different things, all kinds of unending questions arise, and these questions only lead to more confusion. So to put it again further simply, and the essence of it is, so normally how would you find a good friend? How would you look for a good friend normally? and probably in the same way. And if you are walking and you meet somebody, seemingly nice person and intelligent and so forth, and would you go to that person and immediately say, would you become a friend of mine? Yeah, probably you wouldn't. And in order for somebody to become your friend, you would want to know more than just the first sight. And so whether there's the materials for that friendship is there or not. So in this way, in some sense, approaching that same way.
Okay, and Shibadi, Shirab the Taban and Lamatame, Tukon Rambashi girls. Tandi, Shirab the Deba, or that again Deba Jort, this Jort.
So the fourth one is, it is necessary to enact the intentions of the Holy Guru with knowledge, faith, and diligence.
Tadalea, the Shirab Sadi, Chitojo the Shebi, Shirab the, and Gantum, Chitojo the Shebi, Shirab the Jami, Sumban and Sinchen, Jidang, Shishegi, Shebi, Shirab Zamsigi, Jidang, Shija Shebi, Shirab Zamsigi, but in tree, Mebre. She's a shebi, Shirab Zamsam, as in Jitolia, knowledge. The knowing Shirab Sedustan, knowing the Chishan and the Gurbata. Other Indusana, Shay knowledge, shebi, Shirab Zamsig, Medici. Gabdelia, Shirab Sedustan, Shebi, Jabs, Shebs, the Hakor, Jishan and Miro. Jabs Sedustan, Chotu. Shebi, Hako and Nane, Java. Hakoya Yashu de Karagorisana. That's all the Panglangi. Panglang Susheba. That the Nigeria Shirapsi. Panjaka Ranlia, Karipingo. Rana Karinudu. Rana never de Pangua Yimba. G. Hako. Rana Pembadi, Sube Kaswe, Langua Yimba. And a Dugua Jiba Hako. The rich Hakung in the Shebama, and the day Hakung and Garce. That knowledge is another, that knowledge, that knowing some rich Hakung in the Shirapsi honest. That the Indus Gub the Shirap did in Chico. That the Lea, Shirap de Lea, the Shebe, Gavina, Benedict, Azu, Tessam goes with Shirap cigar. That Tessam goes with Shirap de Gas, Carshway. Tessam goes with Shirap, Chibi Pingamindo. Tessam goes with Shira in but some Sigian. Jimona ready. Shirap Namaj in Guriomio, Tizumda. Jaza, sometimes the train to stand Zozo, the Tessam goes with Shirap Namas in Gugu Yabina, and Tebe Shirap with Tambo, when Yomo was Shepard. And it's not a Shiragi. Nyomoba Gonebache, and Gobe Shirogi Nyomoba Zawana Jebache. That the Digigi, Tandonaji, Nyomoba Nyabolea, Chini, the Palang Judo Chingi, Ranlea was Nengi, Nyomoba Imba. Energy to Nyapso Lancer Druzeti, and the Chamba the Nijilas of Iba, the Hakoche. Was the Digigi, Landorn Dolin, Chene, Lane, Da Chumbi Imina, and the Shini, Tesam goes with Shirp the Zuine, Shirp Namajia, you are Jimado, Jedaya, the Junji, and the Tesam Jeji, the party that Tesam goes with Shirp indoor cover the already immunity, Dada Oneji, Tamchinamali and Drama to Sadi, and some coverage of Mendoson. Not the Indusana, Zozo, Tindiji, Tandona, Tindiji, Langdor, Jebi, Shirp Jebi, Imina, Shine, Lamia Gomba, learn to rest. Lamia Maji, Sunshine Nambi, Nerado, Dana Shinji, Kasue. Lamia to Gomba, Shaba Karayevdi, the Langdor and Jungdo Shingi. That the Yunguru Abena Lamia Ma, that Yorang Gisadi, any Che and Majisa, the Majet, Digigi, Hakwa, Jumbina, and a Shinego, Lame Pento, Lame Loma Pento Sade, so the Lame Den Savage, Landor Nedi, Sushinam Sabatella Dene, Energy, Kasue, Pentre Jumbade, Redwa. The name of Digun Dene. 다 시럽 딘데 신스래 다바지 딘데 삼샤고 만 줘바지 다 딘데 브라드 제인자 수수수 공신지 다샤셔네 모두 진이 아야 한다.
So in this particular line, what is important is in Tibetan the word sherab, which is generally translated as knowledge. And sherab, which has these two syllables, she is to know, and rab is in the sort of the in the most profound way or the perfect way to have known. So it is. It should not be, when we talk about sherab as wisdom or knowledge generally, it should not be misunderstood in terms of just general intelligence or the the ability to have general knowledge about whatever general things about the world. So we're not talking about having good know-how of the secular general knowledge, but we're talking about profound knowledge, and that is a more penetrating wisdom. And what is the characteristic of that penetrating wisdom is different from any other forms of ordinary knowledge, is that it cultivates one's ability for intelligent discernment, sort of discerning wisdom. And that is, discerning wisdom is, what is it wholesome? What is it that is wholesome that one should integrate, embrace? What is it unwholesome that one should get rid of or abandon? In other words, if embracing of any activity, any engendering of any thought is harmful to one, and now and in the long run, one should have the understanding that is to be abolished or abandoned. And any thought and action that is beneficial for now and for the future, and that is to be embraced. So from that point of view, a true know-how in terms of discernment. And so in this way, that one needs to understand what is the knowledge that one needs to have, the knowledge of the discernment. And then elaborating on that, generally we talk in terms of cultivating the three kinds of wisdom, the wisdom of hearing, and the wisdom of understanding, and of reflection, that is contemplation. And so, even in this instance of that is, strictly within the frame of the Dharma, we talk in terms of the developing three wisdoms. That one has heard, that one thinks that one has understood, and that one has the idea of having applied, embraced, that alone doesn't seem to be sufficient, or there is no guarantee. Actually, the purpose or the work of true wisdom, true knowledge has taken place. So in order to make sure or alert oneself as to how it has, true knowledge has really seeped in to one's being, that if one understands the limit, if one understands the if one understands the limitations of the mental afflictions, and then that is connecting with the wisdom of hearing. Wisdom hearing is to know what are mental afflictions, and the wisdom of hearing, wisdom of understanding is that one is able to bring about a diminishing of the mental afflictions, that is upheavals or whatever, mental afflictions. And the true indication of sign of having actually applied the wisdom is having uprooted the mental afflictions altogether. And in the place of these mental afflictions, the genuine birth of loving kindness and compassion is given. And so in this way that it needs to be understood realistically along that line. So just simply getting bogged down with treatises and with intellectual satisfaction of knowing is not really possessing the wisdom. Now when we talk about the relationship with student and teacher, that whatever one does must be in accord with the wishes of the spiritual friend, teachers. And what would accord with the wishes of the spiritual teachers is that when the teacher spells out what it is that one should embrace, spells out what it is that one should abandon, that one understands, there is a common understanding taking place. And since one has understood it, and in accordance with the wishes, then that obviously it benefits in the way of first understanding mental afflictions, then diminishing it or uprooting it. And if that's happening, then one gets benefit from it. And that's the purpose and the role of a spiritual friend. And so the relationship is now working. And unless and until that relation is producing that practical result, then obviously there is some problem in terms of not comprehending that relationship properly.
다 드네 뉴스네. 다 너랑 다 담아들이야 중지现象다. 다 세면 간제디. 다 드네 뉴스는 다 안술리 긴상 시리 이야기 신제 밀리아 지 리고 망고지 스타번 얘기야. 이네 리고 니체 상모디 오늘 고야지 제도도 민도 삼야부 당 고야 뒤줄래도 왕아서. 아메지 시리기 리고 가시 pena tangbu pena ta explosion samar de de bam so adisu tangbu ngene ya ji tab de bo yong a ji da ane ji le la la chue che wa yong a ji che ta zo bena le ga le ya disu pena kar so do chen bo de le ya a zo zeme par che ane ko langa su du sa ne zeme par che do sha ga che de ji do she du sa ne ta to wa shu che song ge ne do sha go chu na ga le ha bu ye be yin za ane le la la chue che be che do ane ba ze zemin de su ba ze de su sha da jema de jibodi pejo lo wa le chi ne ane da bam su je da yu gi cha so chwa ge ja la le yu ru do de ne yu sa ne ko jibodi yo ra de jibodi yang ko pejo lo ba la zha ye be ji dang do si be ji dang yang de jibodi one de su so gwa ji de mo gwa ji de do sam dang gwa ji de do de ne de jibodi yu ze sa ma ga shui 시럽 임바당 에너지 가수에 고충미 이제 상으로 미시 시럽 전부도 배 고충무시단 도사 되게 고충부터 시럽 전부 노노노 식도다 다들 양의 중시야나 낭망마 다들 유로피안 중지 이사래 이나 사자 거의 하고 있어 뭐지리야 아니 타운 somewhere 정세지 나로리 아마 김치 알았어 정세지 나로리야 미망고 알았다 디나네 ane lungbe langka sundu kaliya de de ama gimu chuares mode langka sundu ka doa ama gimu deliya chomba kimse zuga mares karasa mo kha lawe ama chudo be chudo cha manga che ane jala de pha yedu san chu san je mares chomba kimse zu mo ge mares da nimajiliya Mr. Takhala way. Mr. John. Mr. Jones, that could not only an image got on us. Oh, March got Shemaj led to San, the Gimut in yours of the lady. Curiosity. Now, Mr. John, 아니 디 기무디 아다 드링아 내가 주 제사 총계난 쪽도 지다랑 부구등을 야로치스 부구야 부구르다야 야 다난 부구도 맞다야 다 부구지 야로치 어도 부구 데메스 부구 대외는다 야데네 부구 다다 데메스 아마 기무데 아니 저랑 그디 가서 껴주셔스 부구 당고라 저랑 그 고래 잡려봐 nghe 통중스 저랑 그 야녀 만드니 이제 라브레스 아나 미스터 존 아 근데 말했어 다나 쇼베랑 nghe 빙자 nghe 오마디 아니 봉구 참말로 대제 종계 나로를 잘라len가 친송스 다 대신 근데 절이야 잡로는 봉구께 잡이 했어 그 봉구께 잡았어 아마 게모도 컨트사다선 저랑 이제 정보 김제라 준신 저랑 밑 도자진도스 안 미스터 존게 그 저랑 빼 도자는 정보 김제 계좌 이제 맞죠 봉구께 이제지 그게 다 민도스라로 봐 봉구께 가용으로 따이네 저랑 걔는 정보 김제 계좌 이제 맞지 봉구께 이제지 네 저랑 빼 도자레스 알았어 한데 미든 거 중세지 또 왔다 다 무슨로 봉구께 개개네 딱그 맨도스지 봉에 샤브데 다들이 디소르지다 고 정보선 참자 리보디디 안다 가서 참자 진영몽바 망고는 베게는 미저제 폐외 게는 누구도 와 근데 인도산에 당한주지 섭섭체고야 나버들 디산 뒤름 이슈自己吧我为亚界呗新的切为当然是这个亚界全部中一个里呀我那真的就说偏把让线了偏把的那把卡了都这个野娃的马切不切근데 내 전에 간다고 가서 편육이 야와 맞을 체제 그 야게 양야 인 체제 근데 치비나 니마질이야 덴데 지 가서에 점링 시부디 아니 가서에 안직에 탈도 넣어야지 용사로 이 삼다고 해도 개좀 있어 자디 차위는 오늘 차위는
So, at the end, I just thought to tell you that while there is a lot of these days discoveries made as a result of various different scientific explorations and experiments, and so much has come up in the way of development and new ideas and new avenues for intelligence and so forth. And of course, it's always difficult whether it's real intelligence or manipulative cleverness. And you know, if you talk about like the origin of the these days destructive bombs, maybe initially that wasn't the idea, and maybe idea was supposedly something good, and then it kind of got out of control. And sometimes we need in the road constructions huge boulders that if one were to try to hammer them down could take you know just whatever number of days, and yet you can blast it with these explosives, and then in a matter of short time it could be cleared away. So maybe initially it was for that purpose, but now, you know, in the name of intelligence and new ideas and new possibilities, and so one needs to maybe alert oneself. One shouldn't get too carried away by this fancy about in the name of development and discovery and scientific exploration and so forth. And when it all comes down to is the sort of self-destruction. And so anyway, I tell you one story. Maybe there is some correlation. And anyway, this story took place somewhere in Europe. I don't recall the specific place. a village in a small village in Europe with a lot of people, and it has a little sort of intersection where people usually meet. And near the intersection, there was home of, among others, one elderly lady, and unfortunately, the neighbors took a dislike for her and didn't like her, and because she was always constantly talking a lot, and then she would go to the neighbors to borrow whatever things, and then she never returns them back. And so, unfortunately, she was seen more like a nuisance. So, but this time, and one morning, she was knocking on the door of her more immediate neighbor, Mr. John, and knocking on her door, and then opened the door, and he was unpleasantly, surprised, or, she had come, which the neighbors didn't like. And so she said, John, today I need to borrow one of your donkeys. No, this is not the donkey before. No, this is different donkeys. So, and I need to borrow, your donkey. And he said, oh, so sorry, donkeys are gone, they've been taken into the whatever nearby town for transportation, whatever. And the lady said, no, don't trick me. It just only last night I saw, the donkey nearby your house. Yes, but this morning my younger brother took all of them to the market, and so no donkey. And as he said that, and the donkey started, what is the noise? Braid? Huh? Brain? Yeah. The donkey braid? Yeah. Or the donkey made the donkey noise. Okay. And so then, of course, the lady got very upset. Look, what are you telling me? Because the donkey, the braying. And he said, and John said, what, you telling me? You're going to believe me, your immediate neighbor, or donkey? And so well, these days, people even try to outsmart you that way. See? Are you going to believe me or the donkey? And so in this way, given the world where we live in, and, everybody's there to try to outsmart each other, and in the name of intelligence, and we are totally amazed by all this material development, all this scientific advancement, and we are possessed by development, and failing to see the consequences of the development, failing to discern all this incredible development that we are possessed by are leading us to greater benefit or more harm. And the possibility is one day, in the name of the development, we would lose the only planet that, shelter us, and that is the source of our sustenance. So in this way, that so to believing too much in all these, possible fancy ideas and new recourse for intelligent this and that, not necessarily a very intelligent, not necessarily bright ideas, but maybe they should be taken with some sort of pinch of salt.